have another Saturday night, and here I am playing with myself. You know, I suspected this would be how things would be when I was a teenager. Once I went away to college, life was better, and I thought it would stay that way. And I don't know what happened. I got older and reverted more and more into this. But there were brief spots here and there where it wasn't like this. But yeah, this is pretty much the predicted life for me. Anyway. So in the initiative, we actually got big draw by France, 5 chits. It's only 4 to the Anglo-Dutch, and the French won the initiative. We're going to test out what a cav charge looks like. Now, this is, of course, not a full tilt charge. I think I'm going to be doing a carousel, but I'm not entirely sure. I got to think about it a little bit more. But I know I picked this guy. I'm going to launch him, and the goal is to disrupt or maybe even shatter Inglesby's forces. Presumably primarily to disrupt before they actually can come in and engage against the infantry here. And then hopefully to get out of there. Because I can't imagine the cav staying there being a good idea. So much of the cav has pushed its way forward, and I've broken a hole in the line. Hopefully I get a chance to repair that. Now the issue comes down to, after that movement, a reaction by the enemy forces. And each defending unit is going to get to make a roll to see what happens to it. Now let's start over here on this end, and I'm hitting it. It's French horse. That's going to give a DRM of +1. These are regular horse, all of them, I hope. I might have some mounteds and some dragoons in there. Defender's morale value gets added in. The attacking unit is on foot. What the hell is up with that? Jesus. I guess you roll on this special reaction table when cav are attacked as well. Okay, and we say +1. Let's see what happens to the first one. Alright, we get a 10. So, this doesn't make any sense. Because that +1, and of course defender morale is also a positive. Well, it seems like you want a low number. God. As the defender, right? Disordered and defend doesn't sound terribly bad. Now I've got this other chart here. Maybe this is better. Charge reaction. Reaction DRM by defending unit. So instead of French horse, which gives a +1 on defense, I should be looking at foot, which gives a +5. Foot do not like this. Does that match this? That does not match this table, wherever it came from. Well, let's look to see if we have... I have a C errata note here, 11.43. Clarification. Countercharge is allowable only if the terrain... Yeah, this isn't countercharge. Well, maybe we got a chart and table that this came from. And then what we have to do is figure out which one it should be. No, this is pretty simple. It's exactly what's in the rolls. I don't know where this table comes from with its different foot values. Let me look to see if maybe it's in Fields of... That's the chart from Fields of Glory. That's the owner owned both of these that I bought it from. Must have photocopied or transcribed it onto paper actually and shit, I don't know what to use. +5 is going to make units melt away. On this particular die roll, it's pretty easy. We're going to see... Yeah, it's not like the units melt. I'm just not so terribly sure that not giving a reaction fire to the charge is reasonable or unreasonable. You know what I mean? I don't know which way to go. I'm going to go meditate on this. Well, my thinking is it's pretty clear playtesting is what shook out this value. And if you think about it, infantry's not going to be able to get any kind of reaction fire or anything with a +5 modifier all the time. So we're looking at, this is going to be a carousel, no modifier, and that makes sense. The infantry is not going to be scared at all. The cav is just obviously prancing up and turning in front of them while firing. They're going to fire back. All right, let's take a look at what that's going to mean. So I think the reaction comes actually before I hit, which kind of makes the carousel pretty damn worthless, but we'll see. Alright, so now we go to our good old fire table. And we're looking at 7 firepower, but it's not, it's just the normal 4. Coming in on a D6. Any modifiers here? We're firing at cav by foot. We get a shift in our favor. It's a stacked unit, which I think makes it a mass target, essentially. Let's check that. Yeah, doesn't have to be foot units. So that's 2 shifts in my favor, which, you know, is putting me up to quite a high table, actually. The 7 to 8 that I would be looking at. I get a D+1. Let's see if we disorder those froggies. That's probably... Alright, 5, yes. Now, disordered units firing gets a penalty. I haven't been assessing that. Now we get the carousel itself, and I'm allowed to fire more than the strength out of the hex, which means I've got 7 strength points there. Some of them are disordered. Using pistols, that'll put me here on the, I don't know what table, the greater than Z table, whatever that means. I don't see anything else to modify against me, so we shoot back. We get a disorder check on them, and they're not disordered. And I'll continue down the line. I'll come back when we get to the next step in the overall shock. That's a painful number of die rolls for that. First the reaction fire, then, or the reaction roll, then a possible defensive fire. Remember, they don't always get it. I think I may have screwed up here. I'm not sure. He took a reaction fire. I'm not sure he deserved it, but the rest of them I kind of caught correctly. It's a possibility you just get disordered from the reaction, which is automatic. But then the reaction, if the reaction fire happens, both sides are basically rolling on the to hit chart. Possible disruption chart rolls. Ouch. This is a very die roll intensive game. Probably a little more than I like. It's kind of like doing to hits and armor saves and stuff like that. It's just you're rolling dice a lot. Okay, this one I haven't done yet. It's kind of interesting because it's cav hitting cav. Now here I've got what look like mounted dragoons, because you see the French Cav have a rifle-looking thing. That means they're normal pistol and sword arm, saber arm troops. The English one has a sword raised, which you can barely see. That means he's armed with carbines. Because he has a brown horse. If he had a white horse, he'd be hussars. I just find that amusing. I don't know why. All right, let's take a look at this apparently modified chart then. And see, the defender is going to be mounted dragoon. That gives him an initial +3. He's also Anglo-Dutch horse. That puts him down to +2. And I don't think any other effects. There's a morale modifier there. That puts him to +1. Okay. And now again, except here we're rolling on a slightly different chart. So he gets a 5. He's an English UP unit. He gets the countercharge. 11.44. So he can make this as an attack using a +3 modifier. This, okay, so this gets to be a full tilt countercharge instead, I guess. And I guess we get to see how that works. Horse units are given a charge order move. Yeah, we did that essentially. The reaction, I would say there isn't one. Do we get an avoidance? I mean, do we get a reaction to that? I don't know. Can we break this off? I would say no. But it seems ridiculous to me to assume those pistols don't get fired before the engagement. So I'm going to allow the French to fire their 6 pistols. They are going to be cav firing a cav, which doesn't look like it has any effect. They are going to be firing at a massed force, though. That'll give me a shift in my favor. I'll be over on this chart. And I get a D+1. I check. Got a -1, again, due to unit morale. A 0 isn't going to disorder anyone. Now we go to the shock. All right. This must shock because it's full tilt. It'll be getting a +3 die roll modifier along with all the other shock checks. And now we go to the normal shock disorder. The defending unit's morale modifier, he doesn't have one. The odds ratio. I'm countercharging 6 with 6. That's 1-to-1. There will never be a shift on that. Okay, so I'm at +3 for full tilt. And I think that's it. And I see if I hit them. That's a 9. That's going to rout them. So they turn and run their full distance. I guess. Jeez, I don't know. Because there's this pursuit rule somewhere. Alright, I gotta find there it is, right? If a unit routs after a cavalry full tilt charge, it must be pursued by any one cavalry unit. No, we're taking an automatic disorder after the charge. The routed unit completes its route movement, then the pursuing unit follows it on the same path. Well, I'm not as fast, but I guess I just get to keep chasing it, even though because it doesn't look like I have to spend any movement points. Let me make sure route movement is what I think it is. It's only half movement allowance. I've been moving full movement allowance. You can't cross the river when you're routing. Well, we're going to have a lot of people dying in that stream. I don't know how they've gotten further than they should, but I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, so we spin, and we have 4 movement points. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this must follow the same path. Now, I'm not hitting a zone here, so now I've hit this, and I think now I must attack a unit, and I'm attacking a routed unit, and I believe that just collapses. I've got to find effects for route here. Somewhere or another it tells me. I'll be back. I just couldn't see straight. Here it is. Routed units in disorder result from fire. Not exactly where you'd think it would be, but that's where it tells you if a unit is shocked or charged, it's automatically eliminated. So, the English managed to defeat a couple of French cav there and just destroy them. That was pretty easy. It's really easy to do bad things when it's your activation, I guess. Alright, now we're at the final part of the carousel. If I can find that. Which is that I have to get out of there. I move 1 hex away from the target, changing facing as necessary at no cost. This doesn't look good, does it? Now, carousels were not suicide missions, and I think they will be in this game. I'm going to look in Fields of Glory, see if it's got any modification to this. Because this is unbelievable. It means that I can just be charged by that infantry. Now, I can run from infantry, but if that was cav coming at me, I'd be pretty damn bad off. Much more reasonable. All carousel infantry that are not routed are returned to the hex where they started, assuming their original facing at no extra cost. This is an exception to 9.13. Okay, great. So, basically, this is a game that the first game in the system was released without anywhere near adequate playtesting, and probably player response to it. Hey, how come carousel totally sucks? Very quickly determined we got to change things. And also, the few places where you use the 6-sider, it just ends up, it doesn't add much to the game by having a 6-sider in it, and it ends up having extra dice, so you grab a die to try to roll it and you got the wrong one in your hand. It's really annoying. I may switch over entirely to the Fields of Glory system sometime fairly soon, because this is too clunky the way it is. Alright, I'll pull these guys back and then I'll take a break. Okay, I continued the draw on the Holstein Beck unit. You can see that's now fallen kind of out of command, actually, because the unit got got dissolved under fire. So that command's kind of split up and gotten ugly. I've switched to the Fields of Glory rules instead. There are significant differences other than just the die roll. I'm finding things, for example, we've got here, it's not really shocking. The foot shock procedure has changed in significant ways. Shock resolution, you can see there's additional effects if the die roll goes below 0 or above 9. It's got additional factors. However, that plus in continued or counter shock, there's not going to be another fire. Okay, I think that's how it works there. But I definitely found some differences. One of them is when artillery fire into the bog, they've got a penalty against them. That's not reflected on my terrain effects chart for this game. I may mark that up to indicate it, because that's actually an issue. So I haven't read these rules, and like I said, there's significant little differences here. So for example, here's one. A reaction to a moving assault. If an enemy moves against your infantry from a flank position, you're allowed to reposition your infantry's direction. Not sure how much I feel that that's appropriate, but okay. You know, it is a half-hour turn. Another factor was with units that take a route. This unit here would have taken a route, and in fact, actually, it should have a route marker on it, because it will continue to disintegrate as it goes. They can run through friendly units, okay. That'll disorder them, but they need actually, he made it. By these orders, he made it, because they're allowed to remove the one minimum space. Remember I said elsewhere in the game you couldn't move one minimums ever? Well, you can here, and then you can displace another space beyond that in a route through, if need be. You can't route through enemy zones of control. That, I don't think, was spelled out in the original. You know, significant differences. This seems like it's probably a much tighter game. The first game that I'm playing here was probably more of a playtest that got sold to people. It's always a shame when that happens. It happens all too often in this hobby, though. You know, that's the grump I've had about a number of games, actually, is it doesn't feel like they've reached the level of playtesting that, you know, the sweatshop atmosphere of producing games in SPI seems to have done a better job of, and certainly Avalon Hill did a better job with most games of at least getting some playtesting on. And you know, I mean, there's companies nowadays that are fine. GMT generally, you're getting a complete game out of them. There may be some that have some iffy issues, but for the most part. But man, it's always dangerous to buy something from a little company that didn't manage to survive too long. Attack was somewhat effective. The number of disruptions, the percentage of my unit that was disordered, I decided to use my activation when it came. This was a planned activation to move forward, chase the cav off, make a hit on the line here. Well, it didn't make a lot of sense, so I held off and took a recovery, a rally phase there to get all my units back in order. I got a second line coming up behind me. You know, that might serve some stiffening, but yeah, one thing that I wanted to point out, I was having trouble thinking because some guy was talking loudly out my window, and it's fairly late, was look at that black mark. I've got the plague. Was the unit that was kind of stuck here routing. What I realized, if you have a dense enough formation under the new rules, because you only take one structural hit if you can't route instead of just disintegrating. If you can figure, I was thinking that, gee, that kind of further stiffens the unit by having pressure behind it, but it really doesn't, because the unit will melt away. It'll just take longer. It'll be, oh no, it's gone. It'll be disintegrating there, even if it's not attacked, until a rally can be made. And you can't do a rally when you're in an enemy zone of control. I'm realizing I carouseled at 2 hex distance. They can only do 1 hex, and that's clearly stated in the new rules, but I had already figured that out. I'll leave it as it is. I've got another carousel that I'm in progress with over here with the Arco hitting the Germans. But I did notice one thing. This is a game where quite often you just want to make a tiny little shift when your action comes up. This cavalry unit here just wanted to move into position so that it could do a charge against this poor thing. Now, There's no retreat after a full tilt charge. You end up out there in the middle of everything. I wasn't in a position where I could launch an attack across an entire line. So I'm just kind of covering my bases by shifting the cav over to provide a little bit of screen there. I'm going to see how this goes. I had one problem here, which is this Hussar. He's not even allowed to charge. So I don't think I can even move up here. That's if I understand correctly. I'll have to look to make sure, but I don't believe he's allowed to do an assault at all. So I don't see. I'm not sure how to handle him because he can't follow the rest of the unit. All units must charge when you do a charge, or all units must assault when you do an assault. But he's attached to that. I don't know what to do with him other than, leave him attached to that line. He can't be out on his own, really. It looks like they can do the carousel, so I'll do that. I mean, they have very low strength, so they're not going to have a great deal of effect. I can't find anything. I swear I saw a rule about them, but I can't find it in the new rules. Maybe it was in the old ones. We got somewhere different types of cab in here. No. And the rules definitely seem to indicate that all cav can do the pistol charge, and actually the other kind of charge as well. One thing I wanted to note, I looked in the back for this because I suspected I remembered this. This game is not only designed by Berg, but it's also developed by him. That's a bad idea. This is the problem Phil Eklund has, I think. You may know the practices that a developer should have, but it's like being your own lawyer. I think it's just asking for trouble. You're asking to have your blind spots, put in front of your eyes here. The design, unless you have, some formal methodology that you use for your development process and end up pretty much shipping all that work out, hey, I got certain blind testers who always work well, blah, 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 where you're almost letting an automated process do the development work, and you're probably losing something with that too. You're going to ignore things. That's fine. I'm aware that that's a little funky, but that's okay. Especially if you're sitting there helping your playtesters through the game, you're going to have a problem. That's the case in any case, but a developer may not really understand the game quite as well as the designer does, the intent of the game. So he won't make up rules on the fly. He'll probably look them up, that extra level of filtering, to make sure that they're explained correctly, even if he's right there doing the playtesting. And of course, with blind testing, if that's done properly, man, this game should not have gotten out the door with blind testing. But I've said that about many, many games. What's kind of neatly spelled out in the charge reaction table in the new rules is that the defending player gets both rounds of fire. I'm assuming not with Cav. That's not particularly spelled out that I see. But, yeah, the reaction... See, here it says all others fire twice, first at half strength and at full. I would say that probably doesn't apply to Cav, although they might have an advantage in reloading compared to the attacking carousel. Because the carousel only gets one shot in. So, I don't know. But anyway, a little bit of disruption happening on both sides again. That's what the Cav kind of does, is it slows up the advance, but it doesn't really... break up the units too heavily. But over here it was enough to force a rally phase. Here, not so likely, just because I haven't hit the infantry yet. I haven't hit either command very heavily, but these cav aren't in range to launch an attack, so we'll see. Churchill's cavalry is pushing its way through the bog here, and then we had a French artillery fire, which is softening this thing up again. And actually, some of the counter battery fire hurt the French more than the English. But I just don't feel like Orkney's forces are sufficient to march forward, since I'm kind of pushing. There was another infantry command up there, wasn't there? Maybe not. Yeah, I just don't feel like I can cross across and punch through that kind of depth of French. So I'm counting on Eugen crushing through, is really what it comes to. Because this line is not holding up against the artillery in it. So this is the only flank that I have that I feel like I can really press the issue. And you can see where the French tried to do something, it didn't go terribly well for them either. Württemberg, I think, I don't remember if I mentioned Darko long. Yeah, we saw that. Württemberg marches forward with his infantry. All the cav slips back 1 hex. That's just, he's been screened essentially. He can't do anything about it. So it's going to be slow going moving forward here. My chit cup's empty, which means I'm going to be going to the no limb phase. Okay, well, we had a little bit of movement here, shifting Fugger into place. Max doesn't want to give up his defensive position behind the stream there. Over here, some rallying. A bunch of passes, essentially, forming up to cross the stream here. I'm doing that. I can repair this at the same time. Doesn't mean much, but maybe I'll want to... this doesn't get removed till the route phase, but it's going to confuse me if it's there. This guy didn't move. The advantage to that is, if I have to get my artillery across the stream, that's the way to do it. I can't really bring, any significant size force through a road. It can aid my movement in some cases, but it's not. I'm not going to be able to move an entire formation like this across through the road reasonably quickly. At least if the confines are as tight as they are here. Otherwise, I could shift things in and I could get across, with non-LIM movement, essentially. But now we see the exciting thing, which is the French center is pushing forward. Now, we've seen attacks don't really make a lot of sense. The Brits are kind of continuing one here, the Allies are kind of continuing one here, but against all these artillery, it hasn't done much good. Now, as this weakens, it may not come forward anymore. And my artillery can keep it pinned and such not, but I've got a lot of weight here. So I'm just thrusting forward, see if I can break the Allied center. I may be taking too much of a risk here, but if I can perhaps use it for some kind of vital turning operation, and then maybe get one of my other big lines into play that so far I really haven't been able to, and I'm kind of worried that I'm causing a traffic jam in this general area, that I'm going to have trouble due to cav wanting to retreat and getting pushed against infantry formations. That looks kind of ugly right now. And it's going to be hard to extricate those cav from there. Maybe I shouldn't have them as my skirmishers. Huh? But up here, if I can punch through there, it's not going to happen quickly enough. But it was the first time I got the opportunity to do so. You see, I'm using standing assaults to mark the couple of units that stayed stationary, just because their fire procedure is a little less involved. Those already weakened units largely melted away. You can see we're a lot weaker now. The French are going to decline to shock. Here, they'd be at a disadvantage going across the stream, and here, they'd automatically destroy the unit. The problem is that that would break their line. They'd no longer be in command under those circumstances. So they're going to let it disintegrate due to routing where it can't route. If it happens to rally, that's fine, but chances are it's just going to fall apart there. It's not going to. It doesn't have a rally option available. So, and it's not going to get to do the out of command phase. So it can attempt the rally by unit perhaps, but if it doesn't do that, and I don't think it can do that while it's engaged, it can't route from where it is. It's got streams all around it. It's in this little boggy island, and that's horrible. So that was a very successful attack up the center. And I guess that's how it's done. You let the other guy waste himself on you, and then you can just march forward and shoot him. I would have been able to melt him away with the artillery, though, too. Just, perhaps. This was more effective, though, especially with the guys who were able to march forward, because they get 2 rounds of fire. These weaker units, they just, they're weaker because they've been under fire already, aren't able to stand there. And Marlborough Center's looking very, very weak. For the final activation, Orkney also pushes forward, hitting a couple of dragoons that were down here. He routes one, disorders the other. You can see most of his line's in trouble, though. He's going to want to do a rally action before he goes any further. And unfortunately, he's covering all those guns now. I felt like I got to win somewhere, though. And everything's kind of held at loggerheads right now. Alright, that's going to push us to the out of command phase. I think I've got a couple out of command units. This guy is out of command. This guy is out of command. Try to figure out if I can do something with them. As we push things over to 3 p.m., we got some definite costs here. 5, 10, 22, 28 more. Ouch. For the French here, well, calf count double. At least there's that. 6, 12, 18. The French can take more losses. And we'll put them up here. At some point or another, I may start bagging units that belong only to this battle. There's our battlefield. I found something in the new rules that units that are en route can move 1 hex automatically. I can't find anything like that under normal movement, so you still have to kind of activate to be able to cross the marshy stream, which makes me happy. But I was feeling a little awful about guys like this not being able to get out of there at all. It's too bad he's lost. I'm not going to try to dig him up and figure out which unit, although that would probably be pretty easy. But yeah, the original rules didn't allow that. Now they've changed a little bit, although maybe not everywhere, because I seem to remember finding something that sounded like the old rules. But over here, there's a special rule added in route, and in particular, this is not if you're routed in the midst of combat. This is after you're routed, right? No, this is routed during. So you move half your disordered, but if you can't move 1 hex because the terrain costs are greater than 2, you're hit. But now I'm trying to see if it still has the reduction anywhere in it. I don't think so. Yeah, there was something where if you couldn't move into a hex, if you couldn't use up all your route movement, you start taking these reduction hits. I seem to remember there being something in it that said you can only take 1 from that per turn in this. I didn't see it there. But that may be just if you're so blocked in that you can't route at all. Alright, so on this 3 o'clock turn, the English again get the initiative. They also got more chits, as is often going to be the case. With the initiative, well, actually, Eugen got the initiative. He's pushed forward Württemberg's force. This is going to force the Cav not to simply withdraw. In some cases, they may be able to, but that's going to break up their line. So instead, what the French have to do is a countercharge. I think D'Arco is going to actually withdraw another hex, because that countercharge is not necessarily the best thing to do. It's somewhat risky. Basically, with that, you're going to have to be using the charge reaction table, but there should be a -5 on there if Foot's attacking cavalry, which makes it much more likely to get the charges off. As you can recall, though, doing a carousel in front of a bunch of infantry was not terribly effective. That's where we got these cav losses before, so we can expect to take some more hits there. But, you know, if I kind of break my units piecemeal, a couple off here, I think I could, I'm not so sure, and then one off here, I still got a few of them that are just going to get hosed, and my whole formation is going to be disrupted. And I know that I've picked a chit for the commander there. Okay, so what we ended up with was one unit got kind of hosed. The rest are all going to do a move fire charge, try to break that up even more. This is probably going to spend this cav largely. And the one unit that didn't get that still got good enough that it gets to fire off its full carousel. That might have been another opportunity, but I'm assuming that the fire coming in is going to be painful enough, so I chose to go with the charges where I could. Here's a strange decision. So I found this kind of odd anyway, because downhill gives a +1 to shock and a +1 to cav charge. These all seem to be inverted. Aren't they? No, you want pluses. Okay. That's fine. I thought that you want minuses on there because why did I think you want minuses? I can't think of a reason why I would have thought that. Something looked like it was good at a minus. But in the original, they actually gave a penalty for cav charging downhill. Seems a little odd. I mean, we're assuming these are slopes and not really steep elevation shifts here, which I think a steep elevation shift, it would make sense to give cav a penalty and infantry, to tell you the truth. Okay, so we're starting a charge and we're going to be rolling on this table. What is our net? Well, because we're doing this kind of mixed attack, we count as a standing attack. And that will, and I'm not sure if the French, yeah, I don't know who those are, but Württemberg's command is unable, oh, those are Prussians. Württemberg's Prussians are unable to shock here. They probably don't want to anyway, it would be uphill. But anyway, let's take a look at one of these. The defending unit has no morale modifier. We're going to get a -1 or a +1 for terrain. And that looks like all we get is a -2 for the 1 to 2 odds, +1 for terrain. So we end up at a -1, and we're going to try to hit. -1, 6 gets us to a 5. We do no damage. Now, just like a foot assault, this mixed assault is required to make its own disorder check. And it's fine. And that's the end of that one, and I'll go down the line. French got to launch their attack in the center. it did not go well. Yes, they caused some definite damage to the Allied units. I think this routed unit is from this attack, some disorder here. But our line's been broken up. We got routing units falling out of there under the commander as well. And that attack's pretty much petered out. Now the problem, though, is extricating yourself. It kind of makes more sense just to stand there, and if you get an activity where you want to take an assault, you can, exchange fire there. Well, if you get an activity, you can take the withdrawal activity. If you don't get that, though, it's better just to stand there. You don't want to break the regiment, whatever the rules for that are. Just ugly. Let me see. If you do the orderly withdrawal, you're fine, but you have to have an action for that. If you do the disordered withdrawal, the breaking the battalion, you're taking fire. You take a disorder check on your own at the completion of the withdrawal, and I don't think you get to exchange fire, though. Oh no, you do get to exchange fire. Yeah. So that's kind of nice. It's not simultaneous normally. The orderly withdrawal, you get first fire, it looks like, which seems a little strange. I would think that would be simultaneous fire. Huh, have they gotten rid of simultaneous fire? Because that would smooth the game a bit, but because I seem to remember that was simultaneous fire. All fire is pre-designated. Sounds like it's going to be simultaneous, but I don't see a clear statement of such. Look at the assault. Yeah, these are definitely simultaneous here, whereas the withdrawal fire doesn't appear to be, which is kind of strange. It actually gives you an advantage to use orderly withdrawal compared to normal fire procedures, where you get an actual first fire. I'm a little disturbed by that, actually. He's got a couple of picks in a row. First, Inglesby marched forward and drove off that one remaining unit that was kind of abandoned by General A over here. And then Churchill's force pushed fully across the stream. So we're in a position now where we can actually begin engaging either against the Cav here or the Cav here. It's not the most pleasant positioning that you can be in, but it's filling in a gap. And now we're over here to Fugger, who launched an assault. He's going to be caracoling here because he can't assault the villages. And I think because he can't assault this village, he also can't hit this hex. So these are, I'm just trying to break it up, cause some damage to it, and then maybe the Prussians. See, I've got to keep the Prussians screened, is basically the problem, so that they under Württemberg here, so that their flank doesn't get hit. And one way of doing that is to break up this unit. I'm choosing to do that because I've got reinforcements or reserves behind me. If I didn't have them, I'd just be kind of standing back there watching and guarding. Fugger was repulsed with absolutely no good effect at all. He's got a unit routed. We're not going to charge the up to the village like that again. That's just an ugly situation. Defensive bonuses and offensive bonuses actually for the Bavarians. If I can't get infantry in there, I'm not budging them. They're not beyond the line, so they don't even help victory conditions. I'm just keeping a patrol. If they march across, then I can do things, but I may be weak enough that they can come across now. So that's going to swing this cav. I'm going to move this cav around and just try to keep patrol here. After that, this dude, what's his name? Blanville. Locked in combat, he declared a charge because any other option, he's just got this infantry line too close to him. I moved it up there, and it's really crowding him in. This is almost an Agincourt type situation happening right in here. Some of the units are carasoling. This guy because he's disordered. These guys because they're attacking into a swamp and they can't do a shock attack into the swamp, but they can do the carousel. But that's going to kind of shatter the line a little bit. This guy's got to move, or at least distort the line a little. It'll still be together, but we'll see what happens from this side over. I have the standing assault here because these guys were all in position. So that's actually an advantage for the Cav. It means that they're not going to, they're just going to be exchanging fire straight up. There's no possibility of that extra half round of fire, I guess. The French Cav was quite successful at breaking up Wartenberg's line here. Surprisingly so. I'm relatively impressed with what they managed there. Which is looking like, given that this is not going to go forward, a lot of trouble on Eugen's side of the line. Gotta hope that this breakthrough here is of some significance, that we stop the French here, and that maybe, just maybe, after some recovery, we can actually gain some handhold on the Blenheim area itself, because I was really counting on this to be powerful enough to turn the French line, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen like that. Looks to me like the French are winning over on that side. There's no way the French can really do much about it. They can try to circle around if I break all of Eugen's wing, but there's so much marsh over here, it's going to take the rest of the day to navigate through that and be able to get into any position where I can fight. And the Cav certainly can't fight. The infantry could actually push its way through and present some difficulty on this flank, but I don't think the Cav's going to have any really good effect there. Although I can pull this back and use it as a reserve, actually, and let the Bavarians march forward, perhaps. We'll see. We're seeing engagement all across the line, and of course these kind of games slow down a great deal once you start seeing a lot of fighting going on across the whole line. This is the end of the 3:30 turn. The actual fighting is so cumbersome in terms of mechanical activity that we're not actually seeing humongous amounts of it. I'm terrified of what this is going to be like if we start seeing, engagement everywhere that's real. The Dutch have pulled back to their guns here. They did a withdrawal. Some rallying and such not, but also routed units continuing off the board, one of which is from here, so we're up to another 12 points. And it just is not looking at all good for the Allies. My assumption when I see something like this is I don't get how to use the units. I had this kind of reverses in a lot of games in the Men of Iron series and the Musket and Pike series as well. So, and in Great Battles of History. To tell you the truth, sometimes when I felt like I understood it, but quite often when I didn't feel like I understood. And here, I'm having a lot of trouble quite getting a grasp on what can afford to attack what. Now, this initial attack was obviously too weak. There's no question there. But the attempt to repulse that and capitalize on that initial attack that the Dutch made, that didn't go too well either. Whereas some other things like the Cav defense here, which wasn't really a defense, it was an advance, that broke up Wartenberg's command pretty nicely. not entirely sure that I have a grasp on why some things worked and why they didn't. One might simply be a matter of these big old nasty 10-sided dice. Sometimes I get big strings of one side or the other doing very well. It just does not look like there are a lot of Anglo-Dutch, though, and their allies versus the amount of French. And, well, there weren't to begin with, but there's a lot less after that. We haven't lost any cav yet. If cav are the key to the victory, if the full tilt charge is able to, save the day, well, we're beginning to get. There aren't many Brits here, though. This is the British cav here, what little there is. I don't know if the Dutch are able to do it. I see some places where it talks about Anglo-Dutch and some places where it says English only. Oh, no. The actual Dutch, but not their mercenaries, are able to do it. And here we got kind of a mixture. Some actual Dutch, some mercenary, most mercenaries and other nationalities. But, where we've got the units that can do it, we'll see if they're able to punch through with more strength and break up the French line in a way that I'm not seeing. The infantry sure doesn't seem able to do it, I guess is the issue that I'm seeing. And the carasols, well, they shouldn't be as effective as they were here. That mixed charge thing, man, I didn't expect that to work at all. I thought that was just a crapshoot type of action. But I think what we're seeing is that, there's a chance of breaking up an enemy formation enough that, I don't know. I don't think you can win it alone with the cav. I think you need the infantry to take and hold areas. The cav doesn't seem capable of defending territory. It wants to fall back. It wants to retreat. But, well, here we held the line in a way that I totally didn't expect. All right, I'm sending this one up. As it slows down, maybe I'll spend less time chattering.